Okay, one last really quick video here to show you how to use the print composer. Now that we've made our main islands map, we're going to go up to Project and Print Composers and say New Print Composer. I'm going to call this Main Islands Map. And this is another whole set of windows that will help you kind of design your map so that you can share it kind of with your colleagues or your friends. The main thing you should know is that there are all of these kind of buttons and tools. But whenever you want to interact with something on your page here, you have to kind of do it over on this side panel. So first of all, let's go to Composition, and the default is A4, which kind of international thing here. I'm going to say that probably we want to print it on a regular 8.5 by 11, which is called ANSI A. There's also ANSI B, which is tabloid. That's 11 by 17. These are kind of the two most common formats to print in the United States. So we'll do letter like that. And you can choose the orientation here, landscape versus portrait. And I'm finding all of these things kind of in the composition tab here. So this is kind of where you should go back to if you get lost. Let's do landscape because that's the orientation of our data is kind of landscape. So I'm going to do landscape, ANSI A, and now I want to add the map. And to add the map, I need to kind of go over here, and there's all of these tools. There's a zoom tool, a selection tool, move item, pan. But let's just add new map with this one right here. It looks like a page kind of that's being folded up. So I say add new map, I click that, and it gives me a kind of crosshairs. And if I wanted to fill the whole page, I could just click and drag like that. But I actually want my map to only take up part of a page, because I want to include maybe a scale or some text over here, a description, that kind of thing. So I want mine to kind of take up maybe 3/4 of the page and give it a little bit of a margin space there. So I'm going to go like that and make kind of a square over here. And when I do that, you'll see that when it brings the map in, it kind of tries to bring in the full extent that it can, and it doesn't fit very well. So in order to quote-unquote zoom into the section of the map that I want, I can't actually use the zoom tool, believe it or not. If I try to use the zoom tool, you'll notice when I draw a zoom square, I'm like, oh, I want to zoom into the map here. It actually just zooms into my layout. I don't know if you saw that. But the layout kind of has a whole series of tools, some of which are over here. But for instance, the pan tool, if I want to move around kind of this area, if I want to move around my layout, then I use this as the move tool. But if I want to move items or content, then I would use this, and I can click and drag that around. So just be conscious that there is kind of a difference between navigating the layout versus navigating your map inside your layout. So in order to kind of center my map where I want it to, I have to use this move item content tool. And so I'm going to click that tool, and it's a little square within a square. It's very, kind of meta. And I'm going to click and drag, and you can see that the map inside my extent is moving, but I'm not actually moving the layout or the object in the layout. So I do that, and I'm going to center it around Penobscot Bay, because that's where I want my map to kind of focus on. So I do that, and in order to quote-unquote zoom in to this area to kind of maximize my map inside my extent, this is also called a neat line. We'll give it a border, and that's something that maps often have. I have to go to Item Properties, and this is the item I have selected. And to quote-unquote zoom in, I have to change the scale. Now what's kind of funny is that scale is kind of inverse to how you'd think it would be. A large scale means a small number, and that's because a scale is really a ratio. Right now, this is just a random number of the scale from what I kind of drew, and it's about 1 to 1 million. And what that means is that 1 inch on my layout would be 1 million inches on the ground. So in order to get a little closer, I'm going to type in a scale that is a smaller number, but the ratio was larger. So instead of 1 to 100, 1 to 1 million, I might try 1 to let's try 800,000. And I do that, and I don't know if you saw, but it quote unquote zoomed in. It looked like it got closer. So that's pretty good. I'm going to go a little closer. Let's try 1 to 500,000. 1, 2, 3. And that is looking pretty promising. I'm going to move the extent around to the best area that I can. And I'm starting to... I kind of like it. I like this Penobscot Bay. You know, I can kind of see everything pretty well. And you have to just fuss around and decide what you're looking for. We're going to get some of these texts, these labels are going to get cut off. And if I really wanted to fuss around, I could go back into my map and change the labeling pattern, and then that would be great. But for our purposes, I'm going to keep it simple. And if the labels get cut off, I'll deal with that in a future lab, and we can figure that out. I like that. That looks pretty good. I kind of like that this is open. I might put my scale actually on the map instead of in the layout. So I'm pretty happy with this. You know, landscape letter. I've got this going on there. I'm going to kind of deselect my map now so that I can see what it looks like. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom into my layout to see kind of what it looks like. And if you want to, you can, one of these tools up here is nice. You can go zoom 1 to 1. And this will show you on your screen kind of what it would be like if you printed it out. So you can see sizes of fonts at the proper scale and that kind of thing. So you go 1 to 1 and it zooms in and you say, ugh, it looks pixelated. Why does it look pixelated? Well, that's because the layout is trying to save its own space in its kind of memory. If you had a huge layout, it wouldn't want to take the time to draw every single thing in that layout because it would take a lot of memory. But if you wanted to, you can zoom into the layout and hit refresh up here, and it will sharpen the view so that you can see what it will actually look like when you print it. So I think this is looking pretty cool. I'm going to zoom out again. What I'd like to do is I want to add a scale. I want to add a title and maybe a short little description. And that might be good. I think a title, a description, and a scale will be kind of the limit to what we do here, and maybe an extra label or two. We'll think about that. So to add a scale, what I'm going to do is go over here to my sidebar, and this little thing right here with the pips in the line says add new scale bar. So I click that, and then it gives me another crosshairs, and I have to kind of draw my scale. Click. Oh, actually, I just have to click, and it will come right out. But, of course, as with everything, it's kind of ugly. It's a default. So how do I fix this? Well, you have to go back over to the item properties. This is the confusing thing about how these work. It's never that easy. You always have to kind of look at what window relates to it. So just remember that if we have the map selected, then the item properties relates to the map, and that's where we change the scale. But now if we we change the scale of the map, which changes the zoom of the map. But if we want to change the scale bar, I should say, we have to select that, and then over here you'll see, oh, the item properties have changed, and it shows you the properties of that scale bar. So it's a little confusing, but whatever you have selected, the item properties is going to be the thing that allows you to change that component of your layout. Okay, so we really do want to change our scale bar because I'm not too pleased with it. First of all, most Americans think in miles instead of kilometers, so let's change the base unit, which would be feet. And if I do feet, then it will translate that straight to miles, which is great. It's already looking better. 5, 10, 15, 20 miles. That's a pretty nice kind of scale bar already. Except I'm not really a fan, to be honest, of I'm not really a fan of the below zero part of the scale bar. I think it's kind of confusing to some people. So I think what I'd like to do is go down here in segments. I think I can just, get rid of these segments to the left and get rid of that. And then I don't know if you saw that, but there were 2 left segments and I got rid of those. And there's 4 right segments. And That's fine. You know, it's a little kind of redundant, but I like it. I'm going to keep it. And I think the scale bar looks pretty good. You can kind of look around at all the different options you have here. Instead of the single box, you could do line ticks like that if you think that looks better. You could do the ticks where it goes up like that. That's kind of in general how I like it, so maybe I'll keep it that way. But play around with it and figure out what you like. That's pretty good. I'm going to keep it. Go back to my selection tool and click outside to deselect and see how it looks. It's a little too centered, so I'm going to click it and move it a little further over, and maybe kind of like that. And I think that looks a little bit better. All right, I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to add a title now. And so to do that, I'm going to add a text label. And my text label, I'm going to click and drag a box. And that box is going to contain kind of my title and all that kind of stuff. So giving myself some balance and space so that it doesn't run straight into my map. And in here, I will say, let's say, main islands map. And you'll notice that it's pretty small, and that's not really what I want. So how do I change that, do you suppose? Well, hopefully you can tell me by now that you probably have to go to the item properties, and that's where we're doing all the typing as well. So I'm going to change the font on this, and to do that I have to click font, and I'm going to make it bigger. It's at 10 point right now. Let's try 16 point or 18 point and see what that does. Say OK, and I'm not going to mess around with fonts right now, but you should know that you can choose many fonts depending on what you have on your computer. So I say OK, and I got bigger. I like that. Maybe I'll make it bold though. You know, I think it would be nice to have a bold font. So I'll go back here and say bold and say OK. Main Islands map, that looks pretty good. So I stretched this down thinking I was going to write the body of my text, but I'm not going to because this is my title and I don't want all of my text to look like my title. So I'm going to get a second text box and draw that in, and this will be the body of my text, and it will be separate from what I had before. So I'm not going to write a lot here. I'm going to get some dummy text from the internet and just plop that in there. Okay, so here's my dummy text. I just got this from online, and it of course is the Lorem Ipsum version here. I'm going to actually make it a little bigger because I don't really like it. It looks a little too crowded and cramped for me. Maybe I want to add a picture in here of one of the islands, maybe a picture of, let's say, of Monhegan, and I actually got one of my own photos from a hike. I think the hike is from one of these small little peaks over here. Add image, here we go. I think I have to just kind of click and drag where I want it to go. I have to say where the image source is over here. And then I can say view to east, and that's actually what I want right there, view to the east. And this is kind of a classic main shot here. And then I'm going to resize it to crop it properly, to be about the size that I want. But I'm pretty happy with that. And one more thing, and we're going to add a little custom symbol that I just want to draw on top of my layout so that I can show people where this picture was taken. Perhaps I want in my body of my text, I mentioned that this picture was taken there. So to do that, I'm just going to draw a little shape over here. I'm going to add a triangle, and I'll just put the triangle up here, and there it is. And likewise, I could also add a label just for that. You get the idea, I hope, that you can annotate the map from your kind of layout view. The layout view helps make the map, but just because the map is done doesn't mean you can't kind of manually place things on top of it. If you want to save it, just go up here and you can learn about all these in a future video, or you can just try them out yourself. Export as image, export as PDF, print, all that kind of stuff. So there you have it.